Schools Work podcast, a podcast for everyone in education. This show is brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. At SREB, we believe that every school has the potential to be great. Whatever you do in the school, whatever your job may be, let's talk about things that make schools work.
Welcome to the Making Schools Work podcast. I'm Dan Rock, a senior instructional coach with SREB, and I'm here with the always lovely and always entertaining Debra Cullen.
Thank you, Dan.
Debra,
It's a pleasure to be here.
Debra is one of our experts in the crossover between academics and career and technical education. She works all over the country helping teachers who are either in tech centers or comprehensive high schools think about ways to incorporate academics into CTE, and for academics to incorporate CTE into their classes, which is an exciting opportunity to have her here because we're going to talk with a pacesetter school named the Career Academy of Decatur in Decatur, Alabama. And they are a brand new school that has built academics within a CTE center so that students can go there full time and not have to switch back and forth between their comprehensive high school and the CTE center. They just started last year and they've got a really cool story to tell. We're going to have with us the director, Ressa Chittam, and the assistant director, Tyler Stevenson. What's exciting about this, Debra, is next week, we're going to have the teachers who are going to talk about their experiences. You can imagine being a teacher for 20 years in a regular high school and now coming to a CTE center and saying, you are now going to teach kids CTE schools in your academic class. I would imagine that. You can't imagine because you did that yourself.
I can't imagine that. That was my story. I was a high school English teacher teaching 9th and 11th grade students, and then switched careers and came into a CTE center being their embedded English teacher. So it was quite a shift and it is changing mindsets, but I'm super excited to be able to talk to some other teachers about their experiences just as I experienced the same thing.
Yeah. And what we're going to be listening for is how can any teacher in any school build this level of career readiness, career focus to help students see the purpose of school. They see school as a place that they're going to not just learn about facts, figures, history, but how they can be applied in real world settings.
I think oftentimes our students feel like school is done to them, and these kind of opportunities provides them opportunities to have school done with them so that they can see the relevance. And I think our school system and our education system is ready for things just as this.
Working with the school has been Don Kirkwood, who is one of our senior leadership coaches, and he's helped them along the way. And so we're excited to see the work that he and these leaders have done. So let's get started. All right. So welcome, Ressa Chittam. Ressa, you are the director of Career Academies of Decatur. Tell us a little bit about your background. What has brought you to this point in your career?
Okay. So I started my career as a social studies teacher, teaching American history, decided I wanted to get into administration. And I was assistant principal at one of our high schools here for about 12 years and was given this opportunity to come and start up and help begin this new high school in Decatur, the Career Academies of Decatur, that's really focused on career tech, workforce development, and providing that pipeline for our community for employees.
What makes your school different from other schools, other CTE schools or centers that we might go to?
Okay. So we have two other high schools here in Decatur, Austin and Decatur High, and we service their students for their CTE classes. They would come and take their career tech classes here, and then they would go back to Austin, Decatur, take their core classes, their electives, do their sports, their fine arts, those kind of things. And how we are different is not only do we provide those CTE classes to what we call our part-time students, But last year, we began a full-time high school here where we also allowed students to come here and take their core classes with us. So we became the third high school in Decatur, and we are offering our students a non-traditional educational experience that's totally outside the box, that provides them an opportunity for more time in their career tech classes, but also affords them time to graduate early and have more time in internships. So we're that non-traditional offering for a student.
Debra?
That's really exciting. I think one of the things that I hear across the country with students in CTE is that they really do want to spend more time in their technical programs. And so for the opportunity for them to be able to stay there all day and be able to take those core classes while still really concentrating on their CTE classes is amazing. I'm so excited to hear more about this.
What inspired the district to create this new school?
Well, I think it was created to meet the needs of our community. We saw that our demographics were changing, our socioeconomics were changing our area, and we also saw the need that our local industries, particularly on the river, needed a pipeline for employees. And it's the old saying, what you're doing is not working, you need to change. So we had to do something outside of the box to meet those needs of the students. We have students that we realized did not care about a pep rally on Friday. They don't care about all the extras at school. They want to come to school because they've got to go to work to pay their bills. And it became a necessity that to meet the needs of our community and our students, we had to do something different.
Tell me a little more about why a student would choose CAD over a traditional school. You say, one, they may not be interested in sports or all of those other things. But what's the profile of a CAD student versus someone who's going to a traditional high school?
Okay. So our students really like to be hands-on. They like maybe the instruction in the classroom, but then they want to go use it in a real world situation. They have a grit about them that they want to finish things early. They want to do workforce development instead of going to the extra things at school. Their drive is they just have a different drive, to be honest, and a different goal.
So you started the school last year. You brought in academic teachers because you were a center, right? You were a traditional TCTW,
yes.
or not TCTW,
yes.
technical center.
We offered CTE classes, yes,
right.
sir.
And Kiddo can be you. And then all of a sudden you became this new thing where you have academics. Tell us a little bit about what the challenges were getting started with this different approach.
Okay. So not only was our goals here different and the students and their goals were different, but also the instruction here is very different, where in a traditional high school, your core classes drive the curriculum and the electives are sort of accessories. Here, the CTE classes drive the curriculum and the core classes are the accessories. And so that caused a total mindset shift with how to do instruction. Our superintendent used to say, we don't have to worry about interpreting, knowing everything about Beowulf and writing an essay on it. That's not our goal here. We need to be working on technical writing, resume building, those things that are going to help them with career development and the workforce. So as we started trying to incorporate this, our teachers were given some work days during the summer. And they called Tyler and I down and said, we got a problem. And these are veteran teachers. We're not talking about first year teachers. We're talking about they could retire tomorrow if they wanted to retire. And that was one of the most helpless feelings as an administrator I've ever had, is for them to say, all right, we've got the CTE standards and we've got our English standards, but we don't know how to make this mesh. And I looked at it and I said, you know what? I don't know how to make this mesh either.
Oh boy.
Because we've all been lifelong educators.
Yes.
We don't know what that side looks like.
We didn't know what industry workforce looked like either. So this is when we called our curriculum supervisor, Anita Clark. And I said, Miss Clark, we got a problem. We need some help. And she said, you know what? I think we need to call SREB. And they will have a cohort here that can help us not just navigate through this, but help us build our curriculum and in a pathway for us to move this forward. Not just a quick fix, but something we can start and be able to sustain. And so that's how we became connected with SREB and started this journey of changing the curriculum and the mindset of our teachers.
That makes me think back to when I was an English teacher. I was a traditional English teacher at a high school, and I thought that you needed Shakespeare in order to be successful. And then I became an English teacher at a technical center, and it's such a mind shift for me because in the first week of being an English teacher at the technical center, I saw students who were not engaged at all at the high school who are now so driven by what they wanted to do. And so my English classes looked much different. And once again, it is a mind change. You go from being, what you perceive to be like the most important thing as an English teacher, teaching Beowulf and teaching Shakespeare.
Yes.
And then realizing when you go in, now it's really about helping the kids get to the next level. We hear our business and industry people say, we need people who can communicate well, verbally and written. And that's what your English classes become, is that support system for your students to be able to get into the workforce through those communication skills. And it is a mind shift for the academic teachers and, even the CTE teachers when they're trying to bring in academic things. But I think that shift is happening, especially with schools like yours that are starting to make that shift.
Or Beowulf.
I still love Beowulf, Dan.
Yes.
He's just he's got to slay the monster. I mean, and here we are just taking the sword away. So we have with us also Tyler Stevenson, who is your assistant director, I believe. Is that the right title?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And so he's worked with you all and he's helped develop the teachers. Tyler, you're a former CTE teacher.
I'm a former core teacher.
Former core teacher. Okay. So you both have a core background in terms of your classroom experience, but you both have experience working in these CTE centers. So you probably have some background to help bridge that between the academics and the CTE. I would imagine that kind of would help.
So full disclosure, Miss Chittam did have career tech experience. She'd kind of been running the center since it opened. I jumped in with the rest of them last year.
Okay.
And I think that's what did it even better for me was that I was riding the train with them, pushing in with them. So I was a first time CTE person, which I think they loved the fact that I didn't know as much as they didn't know. So I got to help walk them through some of that.
And you could help communicate some of maybe the assumptions that Ms. Chittam might make or some of the CTE teachers that might make about instruction and help be a bridge between those two communities. So, when I think about traditional high school, you have your academic teachers who kind of are the core and are trying to achieve the SAT scores or the end of course test. And they'll ask the CTE teachers, can you incorporate some SAT prep or some writing and reading and incorporate math? And you're flipping that. And the CTE teachers are asking the academic teachers to incorporate that into their classes. And that's a challenge. So what were some of the events and experiences that we worked on? I say we, SREB and the Career Academy of Decatur, to help bridge that, to help them understand what was expected and how to do it.
Well, I think the first thing, and Tyler and I can tag team this because this was amazing to watch. We realized that as a core teacher, you couldn't teach what you didn't know. And we knew all about education. We had taken every curriculum class, all those things, but we had never been in a business or industry. We had never seen how it operated. We had never seen what their day-to-day looks like, what it really is to be in a business. So that was the first thing we had to do, is to get them some hands-on, real-life experiences. And we carved out 2 days with SREB where we took them out of the classroom. And I'm not going to lie, it freaked them out to be out of the classroom 2 weeks, the 1st of October, in a brand new school. But at the end of the school year, they said that was the best thing you could have done.
You say 2 weeks or 2 days?
2 days, but it was in the first part of school.
Right.
I'm sorry, I probably missaid that, but it was 2 days.
It's okay.
And the first day, we talked through that morning about what you're already doing in your classroom, how you plan this summer, sort of where we were at to get a temperature of where we were. That afternoon, we brought in local business and industry and had a panel where Don facilitated that, asked questions about what you're looking for in an employee, what are some non-negotiables for you at your workplace, And what Tyler and I found out real quick that was interesting is we can talk all the acronyms of education, IEP, 504, all those things. They started using their acronyms and we just sat there looking at each other. And so one of the teachers finally raised her hand and said, okay, what's the SOP? We do not have a clue what you're talking about. And that's when the whole conversation changed. It was like the walls came down and everybody got on the same page.
Realizing how far apart we were. And then later on in that discussion, it was, well, how in my science class am I supposed to teach them about, whether it's GE building refrigerators or whether it's Nucor's steel process. And the second big kind of changing point was that, hey, no, we train them on all that. We need y'all to work on communication, working as a team, all those things that end up becoming our pillars.
Yeah. But just having those conversations just broke barriers because as an educator, we know our world, we're comfortable in our world. But when you start a conversation with 3M or Nucor, who's one of our huge companies here on the river, it's intimidating. It's very intimidating.
You're right. Over the summer, I got to experience working with a school system, the entire county or district, and they were trying to put in project-based learning into their middle schools and wanting it to be a big portion of what they're doing. And we also had a panel with business and industry people and asked them questions. And I think you're absolutely right. We're in our education world, but we have to move ourselves into the business and the career tech world in order to truly understand. And those teachers were mind blown about what the employers were saying. What skills do you want these graduates to have when they leave high school? And they were talking about the communication skills and telling the teachers, please teach your students this and this. And it's so important that we as academic teachers start speaking the language of the CTE.
Absolutely.
So I love that you had that as a beginning. And that's something that I really encourage teachers and leadership to do across the country is when we're trying to bridge the gap between academics and CTE and the workforce, we have to be able to talk with one another, sit down at the same tables and speak each other's language.
Yeah.
So that was day one. And then the second day, we actually took the teachers out and we toured Nucor Steel that morning, which was mind blowing. And then that afternoon, we toured GE, where they make and manufacture refrigerators. And for them to see what's being required, what day-to-day looks like. And you'll talk to some of our teachers this afternoon, but some of them have lived here in Decatur their whole life and had no idea what industry looked like on the river.
What was mind-blowing? Tell me more about mind-blowing. Like what made it, what was blowing the mind?
Well, I don't want to speak for them, so I'm going to let them talk. I'm going to talk for Tyler and I. We went to Nucor Steel. I had no idea all that was happening at Nucor Steel. Not a clue. The molten, it was on.
I was ordering the sun, melting this stuff.
Wow.
The safety requirements were big.
Yeah.
You can see a definite, everybody where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, areas clear and clean. And the process there was
efficient.
Yeah, it was big time.
So they had this day one. We talked about what we're doing, where we are, understanding what some of our challenges are, a panel where we are hearing the language of industry and the language and expectations, and then a full immersion on the second day of seeing how these folks are working, what they're talking about, what type of work there's out there. So now things are changing. What were the changes that happened based on this 2-day experience?
Well, I think teachers begin to realize, like Tyler said, you don't have to teach everything that's required at a workplace. And I think that's where we were getting weighted down. And I want to say too, keep in mind at this point, we've not meshed the CTE teachers and core teachers together. We're not there yet because I'll be honest, our core teachers didn't know enough to have a conversation with CTE yet. We weren't to that point. So, and we felt like it was very important that first day and that's why we started that way, for those core teachers to be heard and to hear where they're at and where they're concerned and where they're frustrated. So that's why we started the day like that and then began to pour into them what they needed to felt like they were on the right track.
And this led to your pillars. Tell us a little bit about what the pillars are and how they were developed and how they're used in your school?
So after our core teachers began to gain knowledge about the industry world, then I think it was December, we meshed them back with the CTE teachers, and they shared at that PD day sort of what they had seen and things they felt like they could come back and take to their classroom. And it was so energizing to see, because the CTE teachers were like, yes, absolutely. Y'all, everybody was on the same page. And they began to realize we don't have to teach every process at GE to make a refrigerator. But if we teach them a work ethic, if we teach them to communicate, if we teach them to think critically, to be adaptable when somebody asks you to do something differently and maybe you don't like it, to have a good attitude about it, to be able to work with other people, that's what came out of this. That's what industry needs. If you give us students with those capabilities, we can train them to do anything else.
One of the mind-blowing things I think that comes between the teachers, and I don't know your thunder of your teachers for the afternoon, but I think one of the things for academic teachers, when they come into business and industry and when they come into CTE programs, they're really shocked by the high levels of math and science and literacy that are required to run those kinds of businesses and industry spaces and what's involved. And so it's an exciting moment for academic and CTE teachers to come together and say, we had no idea you were doing that level of math or that level of science or that level of reading. So that's always a mind-blowing thing too.
Absolutely, yes.
So, and some of that bring back, I think the question was asked a minute ago, what did we see when it came back? So we began being intentional in our observation in these core classes about how are you integrating the CTE stuff. So stuff that jumps out is me, our math teacher he's doing in geometry, they're doing like measuring angles for different types of cuts that they may use in construction, different type of welds, different type of machinery things. In one of his algebra classes, they're doing budgeting. That's really tying back to business type stuff. The science teacher, she's teaching chemical change. And instead of just teaching chemical change, in her words, she says, okay, now I want you to break into groups, try to break into groups of your academy and tell me what chemical changes occur in your academy. What chemical changes occurring during welding? What chemical changes occurring during cosmetology when you're changing that hair color?
Oh my.
It was great.
I love it.
It's been good.
Yeah. Social studies teacher, she's doing FDA, federal government regulation. She's researched what federal government regulations are for your academy in the field you're looking into. So it's really broad and really gets intentional.
I'm assuming that teachers still have to teach their standards and they're still responsible for the state assessment, the same state assessment as everybody else. So they have to be mindful of that. So they can't necessarily completely 100% change everything they teach. They have to still maintain, and we'll talk to them a little bit later. I'm wondering about, so that's what I heard you say is they're making connections. They're showing, they're helping the kids see the relevance in their academy, in their pathway, not necessarily teaching that pathway or teaching those work skills, but making the connections but also building in those pillars. I'm wondering about the pillars. Are there projects that they're doing that you've noticed that really sort of highlight developing those pillars that you can talk about?
So developing the pillars was an ongoing process throughout the school year. And we really fine-tuned them by the end of the year. And we will be incorporating more of that this year. We did some last year. And at the end of the year, we actually gave pillar awards for each grade. Our students knew what the pillars were. Our goal this year is to do more intentional projects with those pillars. But to know that this is what we're looking for and that this is the standard, they got it last year, I think, more than we realized, to be honest.
At the end of the year, we did a showcase day.
Yes.
And that was kind of our big end of the year bash, I guess we can call it. And we invited community members, representatives, industry people. They all came here and they walked through our core classes, and the students did all the presenting, and it showed them what they were doing that incorporated all of those things into their classroom. And it was really good. We talked to Don yesterday, I had a video call with him, and his question was, do we plan on doing that again? And we said, yes. And he said, the hard part is, how do you improve something that was already so?
Tell us about some of the best projects that were presented at the showcase, or some of your favorites.
All right. So I think some of mine, and it wasn't funny, but it was. So our social studies class wrote letters to their representative about a current issue, and the local representative was there. Hey, she read that. She goes, wait a minute, I don't know if I've read this. Let me see what this says. So that was an interesting interaction between her and the students over their viewpoints and concerns. And so that was good. I tell you what was very impressive is not only what they presented, but how they presented it. When our students came in, they shook hands, they looked them in the eye, they introduced themselves. And what is so just resurgence about this is a lot of these students would just slip through the cracks at other schools. And they have come here and they have found their calling, they have found their purpose, and they are leaders on this campus, where at another school setting, they probably would go unnoticed.
Why do you think
that is so re-energized?
Why do you think that is?
Because they might not be rock stars in a core class that has half the students in it are college bound, and they know that's what they want, and they are academic bound. I was lucky enough to get to see a lot of our students at the middle school level. I had them at the middle school before I came here. They are a little more standoffish, a little more quiet. They're not as academic. They're not as academic based. They got to showcase what they're good at and what they know they're good at, and they're confident in here.
Not every kid is going to go to college. Not every kid needs to go to college. There are so many highway
you're right.
jobs that are available that make this country run. And you're right. In that world, they're not interested in the college thing, the pep rally. And so they feel out of place. And at your school, they are feeling empowered and they're ready to go into the world and earn a great wage.
Debra.
And the thing.
Go ahead.
The thing too, Debra, you're 100%. And not only do our students believe that, and it's one thing to have a mission at your school and what you know you are goal-oriented, what you want to do. But when your faculty actually believes in that, it takes a whole other turn. And our faculty not only knows what we're doing, they 100% believe in it and want to take care of these kids and make a difference. And that is what has changed the pendulum here.
I'm thinking about that showcase at the end of the year and the power of that. It's giving students an authentic audience. It's helping the teachers design assignments that are meaningful and purposeful. And it is bringing in local community to help give feedback to the students.
Sounds like project-based learning to me.
It sounds like
yes.
It allows you to institute project-based learning into the curriculum. And I'm sure 100% of your teachers were 100% on board with that from day one, right? Wrong.
Yeah, once they understood. You don't understand. I'll be honest. You can't do what you don't understand.
That's exactly right.
You got an understanding of, I'm still going to teach To Kill a Mockingbird. We're still going to read To Kill a Mockingbird. But while we're doing that, we're going to collaborate with each other. We're going to think through critically. We're going to hear somebody's viewpoint that might be different than mine and learn how to react to that and how to talk through it. So once we understood that we're still doing those things, we're just approaching at a different viewpoint and angle, then everybody like just took a deep breath and said, oh, okay, we got this now.
Because honestly, in the beginning, we had teachers that were in a brand new school.
Yes.
We had teachers that were asked to rethink their curriculum. And then they were tasked with coming up with this end of the year showcase project that's going to encompass all these things we've asked you to do in a pretty short amount of time.
That Tyler and I were still trying to figure out too. Don't get us wrong. We were still figuring out as we were flying it too. We were very transparent.
Once we, in my opinion, I've said this more than once, to be honest, we tried to micromanage it early and we realized that they were kind of freaking out. So once we kind of backed off, we were like, okay, we've been in your rooms. You're doing all these things. You've got to stop overthinking this. You're already doing all the things we're asking. We just need you to put it in a format that showcases it. And they were like,
oh,
okay.
For instance, and Miss Maples will probably talk about this, but our senior class read Plain Talk, which was an autobiography of the founder of Nucor. Nucor got us a class set of his autobiography. And it wasn't just about founding Nucor, it's about leadership and about sustaining leadership and how to be a leader. So even those type things that they incorporated gave a different aspect to industry, which was good. It was great.
Students desire to have an understanding of why they have to do something. And that's one of the things that you're giving those students is, we've heard it as every teacher in the world, why do we have to do this? And it sounds like what you're doing is explaining that answer to them very well. And real quick, going back to the whole idea about teachers needing to teach their standards, the academic teachers, one of the great things when I was able to do that, and I've seen this across the country, is as long as I was able to teach 80% of my ELA standards in the CTE Center through doing those kinds of things. So there's a lot of ways to mesh those English standards and those math standards, the science and all those other things with the things that you could do in the career tech world. So once that is seen, it really helps your teachers to be like, okay, yes, I am still able to teach what I need to teach and pass the tests that we need to pass.
Yes.
Debra, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
Can you give some specific examples of how English teachers or social studies teachers or science teachers are doing what they're describing and what they're doing at their school, infusing CTE into their academic classes?
Well, I think one of the things that we have to bridge, especially for English teachers, and I can speak to that because I was one, is that we are so devoted to those works that we love, those books, To Kill a Mockingbird and all those things. But the understanding of being able to teach standards using that as a strategy, but pulling out incidences of, what happened to this character when this happened, talking about, you can go into customer service kinds of things and still get pieces that you love. Once again, just the fact of the understanding that business and industry want people to be able to speak and write clearly. So those are some of the things that you can write lots of different products, lots of different types of things. You don't have to have your students to do a research paper. You don't have them to do an essay. They can do customer service reports. They can create business plans and things like that. One of the students that I saw most recently was a student who was in a shared time career tech center. And he was a senior and he had failed the second semester of ninth grade English. And he was 3 times and he was still trying to pass it to graduate. Yet the student was unbelievable in getting gold medals in skills competitions in masonry. So they were able to help teach those English standards through helping him to write a business plan that he then graduated and used to start his own masonry business. So those are the kind of stories that are just amazing.
Absolutely.
So in ELA, our ELA teacher that you're going to get to speak to in a little while, she came back from that meeting. And one of the first things she had her kids do, did an intro to SOPs, standard operating procedures. So the very first thing that they did was create a standard operating procedure for the classroom. And then that grew that into other things, longer, more detailed.
Awesome.
I thought that was really good intro.
Yeah. So that we're going to close. And I'm thinking about a hypothetical teacher who is listening and is thinking about how to build more relevance, career connections into their class. And what might be some, what we call low-hanging fruit, easier, less frictional ways to get started. Like maybe 2 things that they could do early to really experience and see what that is.
So I think that when you go back to our pillars, the 2 I think that has helped our teachers most in the classroom is that collaboration, working with other people, and being able to communicate. If they can start doing any kind of strategies, activities that incorporate that into the classroom with whatever lesson you're doing, that will carry a long way.
Okay,
now,
that's really good.
Specific lessons, I think, Tyler, the SOPs were huge. And those kind of like actually industry workforce, technical writing, but just the day-to-day that you can incorporate into any lesson, just teaching them to play well with each other, work with each other, and work through differences. we can say the same thing in a different way, and we don't always have to agree on everything. That's not going to happen in the workforce. You're not always going to agree with how they approach a project, but then how do you work through that?
One of my favorite
Just the skills.
One of my favorite lessons to do as an English teacher was to have the students in their programs write technical instructions for job that happened in their classrooms or in their programs. And then I told them that I would follow those. So I would go into their programs, and they would write, of course, technical instructions for the dirtiest, grubbiest job that they had in their shop because they wanted to see me do it. And so I would follow their instructions literally. So I would walk around in the auto shop, and they would say, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for the oil plug." And they said, "Well, why are you walking around the car?" And I said, "Well, I don't know where the oil plug is." And so we had a lot of joy doing that, where they saw that they had to write instructions, technical instructions, step by step, and have it, laid out for somebody that would not know how to do that. So those are the kind of fun activities that I think that's a low hanging fruit kind of thing as well for them to be able to start and do.
Yeah. So,
well, and I want to go ahead. I want to share this.
Go ahead. Yes.
One of the amazing things, this is the shift that's happened on our campus this year. So we had our first graduation, and our faculty wears robes for our first graduation. We wear robes. And in the past, at the other schools, the core teachers wore all their regalia with their robes. Their masters, degrees they had, accomplishments they had. And this was the mind shift. When we met about graduation, the core teacher says, we're not wearing all. Everybody's just going to wear the same stole, because Matt Gatlin down here, who's been doing precision machining for 25 years, he doesn't get any extra regalia for that. And he's just as accomplished at his skill as I am. So they mastered their skill just like we have, but they don't have all this regalia to wear. So we all just need to look the same, because that's what's important. Now that was
a real mind shift. Yeah, that's a mind shift. Is there anything else about your school and your experience that you think is worth sharing with other leaders and teachers who are trying to build a career-ready centric experience for their students? Anything we haven't talked about that you think is important for people to hear or understand?
I think you've just got to go in with a very open mind. You've got to be flexible. You've got to roll with the punches, because everybody's figuring this out together. And you've got to know that the core teachers, that their standards are just as important as CTE. And to hear that out and mesh it together where they work well together, it'll be a game changer. But the end goal, and that's what everybody's end goal is, that you want to make a difference for these students, and you want to provide them something that they don't get anywhere else to be successful. And once again, if everybody believes in that, it causes a total shift of culture.
And I'm going to say something that Ms. Chittam wouldn't say, but it's along the same lines. Picking your team and having a group of people that believe in it, that is the key, because Ms. Chittam and Dr. Douglas, our superintendent, were instrumental in putting the team together that we have here. And it is a group that believes in what we're doing. And if you've got core teachers that don't believe in CTE, it's not going to go well. If you got CTE teachers that don't believe in core, you'd be amazed at the ragtag relationships between CTE and core teachers. It's hilarious. It is having a team that believes in it. Your team is where it starts.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Congratulations on being a pace setter school.
Congratulations.
And that's a great honor. And we are super excited to honor you and to share your story. Next week, we're going to hear from your teachers and see how your teachers view this entire experience. So stay tuned for that.
Thank you all so much. I get to visit your school someday.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. SREB is a nonprofit dedicated to improving education from pre-K all the way to PhD and into the workforce. Visit SREB.org for resources on instructional practices, teacher data, career pathways, and more. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at SREB-School Improvement and on Twitter/X and Instagram, both at SREB Education. See you next week.